you like my hair, guys, be honest, does it look cute or do I look like 12 years old? I am 24. Hey guys, what's up? It's Belle. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, and if you've come back, thank you so much. Today, you guys, I'm doing a video that's highly requested because I get lots and lots of comments daily, not only here, but on my Instagram and my TikTok as well. And I thought it's time because I feel like, you know, I've been a part of this bookish community now for a couple of years and I've seen the trends. I've seen what people are screaming at me to read, what I've, you know, been having on my TBR for a long time. And I think the biggest thing ever at the moment, as much as we love BookTube, is BookTok and BookTok books and recommendations. Now, I personally have been around, you know, this BookTok bookish community since 2022. So it's been 2 years of me seeing the recommendations, you know, using some of them as well to ignite my love for reading again. And then of course, everything that I sort of see come up on my For You page, you know, I'm putting it down. I'm adding it to the cart, you know what I mean? So I feel like now is the perfect time to talk about what BookTok books are actually worth the hype. So for those of you who are new and don't know me, hi, I'm Belle for starters. Second of all, up until recently, my primary genre was romance, so adult romance. However, this year I have sort of expanded as well into like romantasy, some thrillers. I've read a couple of young adults, like now as an adult. I used to obviously read it as a kid. So today's video is going to include a variety of genres. I'm going to break them down as such. But yeah, if you've ever wanted to know what all these books are, slash, you know, like if they're even worth your time or your money, I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm just going to preface this by saying everyone's opinions are different and everyone's opinions are valid. If I like this book and you didn't, that's okay. And say for instance, you like a book and I didn't, that's okay too. These are just my personal opinions and how much I enjoyed the ones that were coming through to me. So without further ado, guys, let's get comfy, let's get cozy, and let's get right on into the video. As I said to you guys, I've broken this down into genres. First of all, I am going to go through romance books. This is where I've got the majority of my opinions. I'm going to try and pull things off the shelf as I go, because if I were to pull every single book like off the shelves around me, I would have nothing behind me. I feel like besides romantasy, romance is probably the biggest like part of BookTok. I feel like a lot of us got our start, like I said, through reading the romance books from BookTok. So I've just got I've got quite a list here, I should say, of all of the books that I have read over the past 2 years. So let me just get the first lot off the shelf. Okay, so I'm going to get one of my personal favorite authors out of the way first, and that is Miss Elsie Silver. And most importantly, we are going to be talking about the Chestnut Spring series as well as the Rose Hill series, which I will pull up in a moment. If you've been on BookTok in the last, let's say, year or so, you've probably seen these beautiful pastel covers floating around. This is the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie, as I mentioned. This is a small town cowboy romance series where you have, like I said, cowboys, you've got bull riders, you've got a few ice hockey players and some ex-military men. It is an interconnected standalone series, so that means that you can read these books individually if you'd like, but they do take place in the same town and within the same friendship and family group. So you've got flawless, heartless, powerless, reckless, and hopeless. These are 120,000% worth the hype. If you want something that is so comforting, cozy, funny, spicy, you will love these. There's honestly, like I said, something in there for everything. We've got like the single dad and the nanny. We've got forced proximity. We've got boss's daughter. We've got the accidental pregnancy trope. We've got fake engagement. Like there's so many different things and it's such a great place to start. Every single book in this series is fire. I've given none of them below like 4.75 stars. Also by Elsie Silver is the Rose Hill series. There are only 2 books in this series published as of present, but there is a 3rd one coming out next year, which I am so excited for. So you have Wild Love and Wild Eyes. These take place in a neighboring town similar to like where Chestnut Springs is. Again, you've got small town, but this series is going to be completely about single dads. So again, interconnected standalones, but all of the MMCs are going to be single dads. They are so good. Wild Eyes in particular is one of my absolute favorites, and they are just so worth the hype. The next one I've got here is Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. Now I know that this is not a book for everyone. This is definitely one that is like you either love it or you hate it. I absolutely loved this. This is a college romance, bit of a love triangle, and there's a trope in here that I just cannot say what it is, but it's definitely a tear-jerker book. So if you love an emotional romance, you will absolutely devour this book. It's like kind of big, but it just doesn't feel like it, and honestly, it is so worth the hype. I'm gonna say this a million times today, but it is so hot in my room, so if you see me fanning myself slash saying it's hot, mind your business. The next book I have is A Love Letter to Whiskey. This is by Candy Steiner. This particular edition is the 5th anniversary edition, so there is like a bonus bit of content with this book. You can read the original if you'd like, or you can get the 5th anniversary. I really recommend either. This is another emotional romance, and it's so worth it. It's like a right person, wrong time, just like over and over and over again. It's, for a lack of a better word, it's stunning. So yes, please read this, please and thank you. I then have 2 books by Hannah Grace. This is from the Maple Hill series. So I have Icebreaker and I have Wildfire. These are both interconnected standalones from a college sports romance series. You may notice that Daydream is missing, which is the 3rd installment. I did not like that book, I'm so sorry, but Icebreaker is about a figure skater and a ice hockey player, and then Wildfire is like a one-night stand. Both of them are camp counselors at the same summer camp where like fraternization is discouraged, and it's just super fun college vibes. Both of these are so good. Wildfire, in my opinion, is better than Icebreaker. I did use a stack of Tessa Bailey books to do the thumbnail. So whilst they're sitting next to me, Tessa Bailey was definitely an author that I think in early 2021, like early 2022, was super popular. She was like the go-to, and you guys will definitely recognize It Happened One Summer. This was like a BOOKTOK staple. This started my love for everything that Tessa has ever written. She is just such an incredible author, and this was amazing. As well, I think that Fix Her Up is so underrated, but it is a BOOKTOK book. So good. This is like a brother's best friend, Grumpy Sunshine. She's a kids party entertainer and he's a baseball player. And then a new one is The Au Pair Affair. This is a single dad and the nanny, and it's amazing. So these 3 are definitely worth the hype. And I didn't mention it, but It Happened One Summer is a Grumpy Sunshine. She's a big time party girl, city girl, who ends up moving to this small town sort of as like a punishment to say like, you need to get a little bit more grounded. You need to like stop being so entitled, and you're gonna move to this town. Anyway, and then you've got Brendan, who is this small town grumpy fisherman. So definitely these are all just so good. You guys are probably just laughing at me like pulling my entire shelf off of my shelf. What? All the books off my shelf. Also, excuse the fan, I had to turn it on. Next up, we're gonna get one of my favorite authors out of the way in honor of her just releasing another absolute banging book. And that is Miss Anna Huang, who is the author of the infamous Twisted series. This is one of the very first series that I read back in 2021 when I got back into reading, and I just absolutely devoured. I'm such a big liar. 2022. This is another interconnected standalone series, but it surrounds a group of best friends, and like each book is one of the girls' individual love stories. So you've got like a brother's best friend, we've got a forbidden romance between a princess and her bodyguard, we've got an enemies with benefits, and then we have a fake dating with like a billionaire and a social media personality. All 4 books are so good. Twisted Games, in my opinion, is the biggest worth the hype ever. Like seriously, if you take any recommendation from this series, it's Twisted Games. It is just amazing. Anna is also the author of the Kings of Sin series, which at the moment has 4 books. I believe we are going to have 7 because of course there are 7 deadly sins. These are great too. This is a complete billionaire series, so all of our MMCs in this series are billionaires, and they just love their girls. They're so great as well. Totally worth the hype. And Anna's new book, The Striker, amazing. Her very first sports romance book, totally worth the hype. Get your hands on it because you want to be ahead of the crowd, ahead of the game. Then I have Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This is a little bit more of a taboo option. This one's definitely been floating around lately, and I think it just got traditionally published. This is an age gap romance between this girl and her ex-boyfriend's dad, and it's so good. If you want something a little bit different, this one is so worth the hype. Yeah, I read this on my Kindle and I had to have the paperback. It was that good. Next I have, where are you? These ones. Next up I have the Rebel Blue Ranch series. Now guys, this is gonna be the next big cowboy series because the next 2 books in this series are going to be 5 million stars. Okay, so we have Done and Dusted and Swift and Saddled. These are both by Lila Sage. As I said, they're part of the Rebel Blue Ranch series. Similar to the Chestnut Springs, we are in a small town cowboy romance vibe. So at the moment there are only 2. We are waiting on Lost and Lassoed and Wild and Wrangled, I believe, are the last 2. I can't wait for Lost and Lassoed. That's just going to be so good, you guys. In particular, Swift and Saddled is so worth the hype. I liked Done and Dusted. This is the indie version before it got trad-pubbed, but Done and Dusted is a good introduction. Swift and Saddled, Lila just found her footing and it's so good. The next ones are going to be amazing. Again, great friendship group, super spicy, really funny, and just totally totally worth the hype. Okay, next I have Lauren Asher, who is the author of the Dreamland Billionaires and also the Lakefront Billionaires. I just realized I did not pull them off my shelf. This is another interconnected standalone series. However, in this one, we've got 3 billionaire brothers and they've each been left a bit of an inheritance from their grandfather. However, in his will, he said that each of them have to complete a certain task in order to unlock their portion of the inheritance. Okay, so you've got Grumpy Sunshine, we've got Marriage of Convenience, and we've got Second Chance, Childhood Friends to Lovers. And they're so good. Terms and conditions, totally worth the hype. Even the fine print does not get enough hype. But all 3 of these are so worth it. But like, especially this one. This one, oh my God. I have no words for terms and conditions. That's my man. This is the only Colleen Hoover book, romance book, I should say. This is the only romance book by Colleen Hoover that I think is worth the hype. And again, each to their own. But It Ends With Us was genuinely so stunning. I think maybe for myself, you know, I personally relate to the subject matter in this very heavily and it became a very important book in my life. I'm sure now if I went, like I said to you guys, I've read this like early on in my reading journey. Maybe if I went back and read this now, I might feel differently about it, but I guess in terms of the rating, but the story itself, like I've just seen the film and I just remembered how much I loved the book and it's so worth it. It's definitely a lot heavier, I would say, but it spreads awareness and I think it's seriously worth the hype. Next up we have what is arguably my new like favorite series. Like, I don't know if it's my all-time favorite series. I mean, it honestly might be. I'm about to hold up a series that I've given every single book 5 stars to. And that just tells you it's worth the hype, okay? I have the Windy City series and this is by Liz Tomford. You guys will have seen these floating around on TikTok, and if you haven't, what's going on, babes? What's going on? Because honestly, these are the best interconnected sports romance series that I have ever read, that I think it needs more hype, but it's worth what it's already getting on BOOKTok. So we've got ice hockey players, we've got basketball, we've got baseball, we've got like some single dad trope, we've got fake dating, roommates, waking up in Vegas married, we've got Grumpy Sunshine. These are all so good. I want to give a special nod to The Right Move and To Play Along. Like I said, all these books are 5 stars, but those 2 books feel otherworldly. I wish I could like inject them into my veins because I just need them a part of my DNA. You know, it's that serious. It's like considering getting a bookish tattoo serious. You catch my drift? Actually, I'm gonna say it right now. If you take any like recommendation from today's video as like a this is worth it, you need to read it, I need more people to read this. Please and thank you. Next I have another OG BOOKTok queen and that is Ali Hazelwood, which I'm sure you will have seen, The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. Now this might be an unpopular opinion and a controversial opinion. Oh my God, I didn't grab Bride. I think the only 3 books of Ali Hazelwood's that are worth the hype are Bride, which is her first paranormal romance. I actually think this is Ali's best book. This is phenomenal. It's a marriage of convenience or like arranged marriage between a werewolf and a vampire. I read it in one sitting, in one day. Incredible. Totally worth the hype. Then in terms of her STEM romances, the only 2 that I actually think are worth the hype are The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. I'm not the biggest fan of the books that came after this. I think it was Love Theoretically and like Not in Love. They were good, but I don't think they're worth the hype. Love Hypothesis is just, you have to read it. It's worth the hype. It's so silly and cute and goofy and you just need to read it for Adam Carlson, okay? And then Love on the Brain does not get enough love, but it's so worth the hype that it does get. You feel me? You catch my drift? You picking up what I'm putting down? That's what I thought. Next up, I have Collide by Balcabra. This is Icebreaker's hotter older sister. This is a new one to BOOKTok this year and it is so worth it. The next one comes out soon. It's called Spiral, which has got a ballerina I think in there too. This is between an ice hockey player and a lovely college student who's studying to be a sports psychologist, and the 2 of them sort of end up having to work on one of her papers together. So atmospheric. Again, I say that word a lot. I might need to make some merch that says atmospheric or something like that. If you liked Icebreaker and you want something better, and of course, The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is another one that's been floating around this year, making the rounds this year. And I only read this a couple of months ago and I kicked myself that I didn't read it sooner because this was an instant 5-star read. You will be crying your eyes out. Like in a way, you won't be able to breathe. You won't be able to breathe. It's going to teach you so many life lessons and the romance is like so beautiful and touching as well. This is another one that I'm like, whenever I know a book is so good and like earth-shattering, life-changing, I want my mom to read it. Like I need her to read it more than I need air to breathe. So I bought her a copy because it's just what she needs to do. It's a canon event and you guys also need to read this book. Then I have The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. Now, I'll just quickly put this out there. I haven't read every book by Mariana Zapata, and I'm sure others will be on this list. This is the only one that I've read by her, and it's so worth the hype. This is like the slowest of slow burn books, and it's so worth it. Like, I'm talking about not doing certain things until the last 10 pages of this book, but it's delicious. This is between a football player and his manager, Marriage of Convenience. Girl, shut your mouth. Then I have two books by Ella Mays or Ella Maisie. I never know how to say her name. I have Marriage for One and I have To Love Jason Thorne. Marriage for One, of course, is a marriage of convenience between two characters called Jack and Rose. And then we have To Love Jason Thorne, which is a childhood friends to lovers. One of us is famous, like she writes a book and it's being adapted into a movie and he is now an actor and he's like playing the role. These are both so good, especially To Love Jason Thorne. This one needs more hype, but Marriage for One is an incredible slow burn. Both so worth the hype. And then to round out romance, I've got my last couple here. First of all, I've got, in my opinion, the queen of dark romance. We have H.D. Carlton. First one I'm going to talk to you guys about is the Cat and Mouse Duet, which is a dark stalker romance. These are my children, the loves of my life, light of my light, my favorite duet of all time. Definitely check your trigger warnings if you're going to read this. And I know a lot of people have opinions on this on BookTok because a lot of quotes go around about this. A lot of like scenes from this book get spoiled on there, which anyways, it really does depend on your personal preference, but I read the first book of this and I was a little bit like taken aback. But I think once you get used to the themes, this is incredible, especially Hunting Adeline. This is one of my Roman Empire books, one of my favorite books of all time. I wish I could experience this for the first time again. Both are immaculate. And then you have another one, which is Does It Hurt? This one has also been gaining a lot of popularity on BookTok too. This is a dark romance. It's set in Australia, sort of. We've got Sawyer, who has come over from America to be in Australia. She like steals the identities of the men that she sleeps with. She ends up sleeping with this guy called Enzo, who is this sexy Italian shark trainer or catcher, steals his identity and she finds out about it. Then he sort of like meets up with her, acts a bit blasé and like offers to take her out on a boat. When they're out on the boat, there's a huge storm and they end up getting shipwrecked together and there's like stuck on this creepy island. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say. This is so good, so worth the hype. And then we have the Mind F series by St. Abbey. This is a dark romance again, but this is about a serial killer who falls in love with the FBI agent who is working on her case. This is incredible. You guys can actually read this on Kindle Unlimited if you want to. It is a 5 novella series. They're quite short, but you can buy the physical copy if you wish off of Amazon. You can buy, it's like, how many pages is this? Like 600 maybe? 650 pages or something like that. This is so worth the hype. It's like so good. Like I said, can read it on your Kindle if you want to, or you can read the physical. Then I have my baby, my love of my life. I have Red, White and Royal Blue. This one was like, again, one of the first BookTok books to sort of blow up. I've got about 6 copies of it sitting on my shelf, and if you've been a subscriber of mine for a while, you know that I yap about this so much. This is so worth it. This is like, if you want to pick me up, something light, funny, giddy, silly, best friendship group ever, like a book that will actually make you laugh out loud, that's what this book will be, and it's 100% worth the hype. Then we're getting into some like OG BookTok staples for the last couple. We've got The Spanish Love Deception. I know everybody has their opinion on this book, but I loved it. I mean, look, maybe again, if I'd read this now, maybe my opinion might change, but back when I read it, so worth the hype. I still think about Aaron Blackford like all the time, and I feel like this book originated like the one bed trope before it got like super overused. I don't know. Then we have The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This also got turned into a movie, funnily enough. This was another amazing staple of BookTok, and I think it was definitely worth the hype. This is a workplace rivalry romance. They're like both vying for the same position, and guys, I hate to say it, it was worth the hype, especially at the time. Like I love this. I gave this 5 stars. I don't know if it's still 5 stars, but I loved it. Now, I didn't know whether to put this last one into young adult or into like romance, but I'm going to put it here. I have A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. This is going to make you cry. I'm just going to say it right now. Be prepared that you need to have a box of tissues like next to you at all times. I don't care if you're going to the bathroom. I don't care if you're going to grab a snack. I don't care if you're going to take a shower. The tissues go with you, okay? So that's what this is. be prepared. You're gonna cry your eyes out. This, I think it is technically young adult, but I think it's like so full on and emotional that maybe it is just an adult romance. This is like a childhood friends to lovers, and that's what I'm gonna say because it will spoil it, but it's definitely worth it. If you guys have seen my reading vlog from like ages ago where I read 7 sad books in 7 days, I read this, and like the shirt I was wearing, like when I did my review, straight after, I had tear stains just like coming down my chest. It was so bad. But this is so worth the hype. Definitely do it. And that's, I think, it for romance. Let's move on to romantasy. No, it's not. I'm a big liar. I have Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan in my lap. This is so great too, you guys. This is another one I read in that same video about sad books. This is an emotional romance, but it's so beautiful. Small town. We've got Archer, who like hasn't spoken in so many years, and Bree, who's just moved to this small town, and she like meets him, and like, oh, it's just so beautiful. Okay, really sad, totally worth the hype. Now we can move on to romantasy. It's hot out here, it really is. Okay, as I said, we've got romantasy next, which I'll be honest here, is a genre that I only started reading late last year / this year. It's really taken over my life. So I'm going to preface this by saying that I have not read every single popular romantasy book that is on BOOKTok, but I've read the staples. The only one you're not going to see here today is Throne of Glass, because I'm currently reading that now. So I can't tell you if the series as a whole is going to be worth it, because that would just be, you know, a little bit of a lie, because of, you know, I can't tell you if I haven't read the whole thing. Anyways, let's just get right on into it. The first book I'm going to bring up that's not a series, because I haven't read the rest of them. I know I just said that I would not tell you about Throne of Glass because I haven't finished it. But considering this book series is only 3 books, that's in comparison to like 10, I'm going to just tell you that the first book in this series is worth it in my opinion. And it's Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This one is so good. I didn't know whether to include this in young adult or here, but I just got these beautiful special edition covers and I absolutely adore them. This is like a magical, I don't even know if you'd say magical realism, but it's like about a magical game, right? And it is just so good. When I talk about this book, I always say that genuinely, I feel like it is the most vivid, colorful, imaginative story that I've ever read, and I ate it up. Then I've got Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. Yes, Iron Flame's worth the hype. Do you understand? Do you understand that Iron Flame was just as good as Fourth Wing? It's not like better, it was just as good. These 2 books are so good. And listen to me, any of you romance readers who are thinking of getting into romantasy, Fourth Wing is so worth it. This was the first book that I read last year that was a romantasy, because I'd never, like I said, unless it was like a book that I'm about to show you that I read as a kid, didn't really read much adult fantasy or romantasy. This is so easy to understand, and like literally from the very first page, you will not be able to put this down. Both of them are so worth the hype. Next, I've got one that I read as a kid, but is definitely now super popular on BOOKTok, and it is the Mortal Instruments series. I just realized I didn't grab the last one off the shelf. This is part of the Shadowhunter Chronicles. So there is an entire universe that Cassandra has created all around these magical beings called Shadowhunters. Each series sort of takes place in a different time frame. So this is the main series. It takes place in like early 2000s, 2008, 2009 type of vibes. Follows Clary, Frey and her friends. I wish I could experience this world again for the very first time. Like, I wish I could meet Clary and Jace again for the very first time. And Alec and Magnus and Izzy and Simon. And you guys catch the drift. This is so beautiful. It's also young adult too, so. Next I have the Nightborn duet, which is the Crowns of Nyaxia. Okay, so we've got The Serpent and the Wings of Night and The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. These ones, apart from that little novella, I haven't read that yet, I'm very sorry. So worth the hype. When I tell you guys I sat down to read this, I read it in one day and stayed up late reading, which I never do. I know you might be thinking that I'm lying. I'm not. Okay, I stayed up so late trying to read this that I was so upset that I finished it at 11 p.m. and like couldn't go and get the next one straight away. Super addictive. Hunger Games, but with vampires, heavy on the romance. So good. Delicious. Of course, the one thing that I think is so worth the hype, and I'm absolutely like the biggest clown that I didn't read it sooner. I'm being so serious. I know I say this a lot in my videos, but I'm the biggest clown for not reading this sooner, and it's ACOTAR, okay? Because like many of you, maybe, please tell me if I'm wrong, but I saw everybody talking about this series and I said, I'm not reading it. Because I just have this thing where like, if I see something's popular, I don't want to know about it. I don't want to read it. I just think it's like lame, you know, and like that was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life, because I've missed out on so many beautiful editions of these books because I was naive and just decided not to do it. I can't even like tell you what this book series is about. In the most serious way, I can tell you all the characters, I can tell you what it felt like, but if I tell you what it's about, I will spoil it. you catch my drift? This is amazing. And the romance and the friendship group and the war and everything, like, I'm being so for real when I say that this is like the thing that's worth the hype. Next up, I have the Letters of Enchantment duology. So we have Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. I read these last year. Now, whilst I didn't love the story, like the story was good, but I think what makes these books worth the hype is the romance. This love story is like a 5-star, and I enjoyed the world that we were in, and I think it's worth the hype. I don't think it's like the best romantasy series on BookTok, but yeah, I mean, I think it's worth the hype for the romance. That's the only reason why I'd included it in this list, because I think it was worth it for the romance. And last but not least for this section, because I didn't know whether to include this, it's a strange one. It's the only dystopian series that I have, and it didn't really fit anywhere else. So I have Shatter Me. I just read this, like just finished it last week, because I'd been reading it for a couple of months, but I sort of was like spreading out the books because I didn't want it to finish at once. How this series is sort of split up is, can you see how these first 3 here look a bit different to the remainder of the series? This series is sort of like part 1 and part 2. Like, that's how I feel about this series, and it's so good, you guys. The characters, there is a character in this called Kenji, and like, I have never ever read a character who has been written the way he's been written. He's just so real and hilarious, and like, I just want to be his best friend, and I need him in my life. I want to put him in my pocket. Anyways, this is a dystopian series that follows Juliet, and she's sort of like been locked away in this room for like 300 and however many days, and she's never spoken to anyone, and she thinks she's going insane. That's all I can tell you about this series, because it's phenomenal. Okay, it's worth the hype. Do I think the first part of the series is correctly hyped? Yes. I think the back end of the series is good, but I mainly only stayed on for the characters, and that's it. So that's it for your romantasy. Let's do some thrillers. Okay, I've decided that I'm gonna group young adult and thrillers together because I don't have too many for these two sort of categories. As I mentioned, my main genres are romance and romantasy at the moment, but I have read a couple. So of the ones that I've read from BookTok Recs, starting off with thriller, I have Verity by Colleen Hoover. This is so worth the hype. It's not even funny. I have said this in a few of my videos now that I literally wish I could lose my memory so that I could reread this book again without knowing anything, like for the very first time. It was so good. If you want like an introduction to thriller, you haven't read thrillers before, do this one. This one's worth it. I always say as well that I really think that Colleen Hoover really thrives in her thrillers, so I feel like she should be writing more like this. This is like leaps and bounds ahead of all of her other romance books. Yeah, I still think about the ending of this book to this day, and I don't know how I feel about the ending. Do you know what I mean? And then lastly, I have 2 books by Frida McFadden. Frida is like the BookTok thriller author. I've read a couple of her books by now, but the 2 that I think are genuinely worth the hype are of course The Housemaid, but also Never Lie. Never Lie to me is way better than The Housemaid. There is just like, they're leaps and bounds apart, but both are worth the hype. I believe this one's also becoming a movie soon, I just saw, but Never Lie is so good. Like, you guys, you don't understand. This is about this like couple that go out to see like an open house in the middle of nowhere, and they get snowed in like with a blizzard, so they have to stay in the house for the night. And then the wife like finds this room where there's all these weird like recordings and like tapes, because a psychiatrist used to live there, and the story goes from there. Oh my god, you guys. And like, this one here is about this like housemaid who gets hired to work for this really rich family. She's like a live-in housemaid or housekeeper, and she's got a room like in the attic, but her bedroom door only locks from the outside. Crazy. Then for our young adult books, I have a few different types. The first 3 I'm going to look at are the selection. Now, I'll tell you guys just quickly, the reason I don't have too many like plain young adult books that aren't like, you know, the staples, The Hunger Games, Divergent, Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, because I've read all those when I was younger. I also read these when I was younger, but these ones are like sort of trending on TikTok now. So the selection follows America Singer. It's basically like this like competition for all these princesses or like debutantes to win the prince's heart, if that makes sense. So this is a trilogy. I believe there are other series like books accompanying this, but this is the main series. Totally worth the hype. I've got You've Reached Sam by Dustin Thau, which is another sort of emotional tearjerker. This is so sad, you guys. So sad, but it's in the young adult category. It's got a beautiful love story, but it will make you sob your eyes out. It follows Julie and Sam. So Sam has recently just like tragically passed away, and Julie keeps ringing his voicemail just to like hear his voice. And then one day Sam picks up the phone, and it's like that premise of what would you do if you got the chance to say goodbye to someone that you weren't able to. And finally, my favorite thing ever is Heartstopper. This is totally 130,000% worth the hype. Guys, like my entire room has leaves all over it. If you can't see, like I love this series so much, and also it is a great one if you want to start off because it's a graphic novel series, so a little bit easier to read as well if you're just getting into reading and you feel like maybe picking up a full novel, you know, you're not there yet. So this follows Charlie Spring and Nick Nelson. They are two boys who meet each other in high school, and their friendship sort of blossoms and helps them, you know, learn all these things about themselves and each other, and they have the most beautiful friendship group. It's so worth the hype. You can see I've got like a whole shrine to it over there, so yeah. That's that. Alrighty, you guys, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for sticking through all the way to the end. If you did, I really appreciate it. What are some BookTok books that you guys have read through BookTok that you thought were actually worth the hype? I have read quite a few books now from TikTok, and look, there is an even mixture, I really feel, of books that I think were worth the hype and I think weren't worth the hype. And as I was saying at the beginning of this video, I think that all comes down to the fact that we are all different individuals. We all have different likes and dislikes and tastes, and you know, whilst one book can be totally worth it for one person, the other person, you know, could not be for them. It might not be their cup of tea. And that's why I think reading is so interesting as well, because, you know, I always want to know why a book worked for someone else and maybe it didn't work for me, or why a book worked for me and like didn't for someone else. So I think it's super interesting. So yeah. Anyway, you guys, as always, if you aren't already, feel free to follow me on TikTok and on Instagram if you'd like to. I'll leave my handles on the screen here and down in the description box. And if you aren't already, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and make sure you are hitting that notification bell. That way you're notified each time a brand new video goes up. We're getting to the end of the month, you guys, soon. So we've got the wrap up coming. We've got the November TBR, which is insane too. So make sure you guys are subscribed for that. Thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate you guys stopping by wherever you are in the world. I hope you have a lovely day or a lovely night, and I shall see you all next time. Bye.